Good evening. Would you stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance, please?
Heavenly Father, we gather this evening thankful for this opportunity to serve our community. We need your wisdom, we need your guidance. Help us to be good listeners, to be respectful, to gain the outcome that you would have for our city. Keep us safe, care for our first responders and those who protect our city. And ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call to order this special session of the Vienna City Council for March the 16th, 2023. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll, that all members of council are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. The minutes from the regular council meeting on March the 9th, 2023 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
They will be at the next meeting.
So great. We will do them the next meeting. Thank you. So we have no unfinished business this evening, and so we move into new business. First item on our agenda this evening is a resolution approving the 2023-2024 general fund and coal severance budgets and their submission to the West Virginia State Commissioner. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that the general fund and coal severance budgets, copies of which are attached hereto for fiscal year 2023-2024, are hereby approved. The Treasurer of the City of Vienna is hereby authorized and directed to forward same to the West Virginia State Tax Commissioner for approval. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution approving the 2023 and 2024 general fund and coal severance budgets.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution approving the 2023 general fund and coal severance budgets and their submission to the West Virginia State Tax Commissioner. Is there any discussion?
Well, I have a question first. I've got several things. In the budget...
Kim, let me stop you for 1 second.
Sure.
Mr. Leach, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Kim, please.
Okay, great. In the budget expenditure sheet that we were given, these amended things that were added to this budget, there was, number 2, it included an additional $25,000. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Number 4, it included $25,000 in 70423 for a search for development director / city planner. So I was hoping to get some more information about that, but I'm also curious as to why we're putting in the $25,000, which I would assume, because you're saying that $25,000 for a search. So I'm assuming that you're considering using a headhunting firm. But the curious part to me is why then, if you intend to hire a development director, that's not actually put in this budget, the salaries. Because when I go back to previous budgets, when we've had that position, and I know Paul Thornton had that position, and I know Linda was also on that in that budget item. But then to run that department and so on and so forth. So that budget item would fluctuate, $170 up to almost $200,000 a year. So I don't know why we're only including the $25,000 for the search and not to actually fund that department if we anticipate we're going to hire somebody. But I'd also like to learn more about to tease this out, to learn more about what this is actually for.
Mr. Leach, would you care to answer that question?
Yes, and Kim, in terms of, we had an economic, can you hear me all right?
Oh, yeah, clear, very, very clear.
Okay. Previously we had Paul Thornton as an economic development director. And Paul, I think, did a lot of good things for the city. He was, of course, well-versed in all city operations from all the positions he's held over the years. I asked for this amount to be put in, not necessarily to create the position, and I also really don't think that $25,000 is going to be necessary for this. but it's not just to immediately start looking for somebody to fill this position, but to give council the ability to do some research and say, you know, I see it as being a broader task that could help across all departments. We've got, of course, the department heads and the mayor all handle the administration of the city, everything from, you know, a barking dog to, you know, a broken water line. But to just take a minute and say, is this position needed in Vienna? And if so, what would that job description look like? And, you know, because I think that we have a lot of opportunity in the city of Vienna to do develop, and even down to what the title, like you can call it city developer. I could see, you know, city advocate is kind of, I don't think that would be the position, but so before we would rush into saying, oh, you know, let's look at this, let's define the position, see everything from our website to just a lot of different areas, which that's why I didn't ask that we put in the budget or start looking to hire this position. So I don't want to go on and on about this, but I think my intent is to draw attention to the opportunity for somebody who works more in the area of bringing in, you know, additional families to our community, additional services, you know, new ideas. And so whatever amount that might be, and as I said, I don't think unless, you know, and it's not with the intention, as you mentioned, to just immediately go look for, you know, hire a headhunter, but really to think about and develop what this position might look like, whether we want it. If so, what's it going to take to fund it, and what would that job description be?
So that's the explanation for it.
Okay, so we're just putting it in the budget. We really don't even know if we're going to hire a headhunter, or it's just a placeholder. Basically,
Well,
is what we're saying.
You know,
No, it's not a placeholder. I'll answer that, Mayor. It's not at all a placeholder. It's to allocate some funds because it may be beyond, in essence, what we can do, say, versus a headhunter saying, should we retain a consultant to actually kind of develop the concepts that we're looking for? I mean, I have a very good idea, and I'm sorry I can't be there tonight. My niece is getting married out of the country, and I'm here tonight. I really am, you know, not happy I'm not there to discuss this in person. But no, I think the phases that I would see would be, number one, amongst ourselves, define. Do we think we need this position? And if so, what does it look like? Number two, say, do we need help in developing the concept or the job description? I think is too narrow of a term, but I'll use that for this position. Number three, if we decide we want it, then to begin recruiting for the position. And I see this as being, you know, this is not in my view, it's not a minimal position. This is a very important position within the city and should be approached carefully. So it's not a placeholder. It's to give us some funds to do that. And I would think that I would ask the mayor to even form a committee to develop the idea for this. I've been advocating for this for 5 or 6 years, actually ever since Paul left. I believe that the city is not served well by not having somebody in this capacity. And this year I decided to go ahead and put it on the table for further discussion.
The city of Parkersburg has a fantastic development director. I mean, he does a terrific job. The Wood County Development Authority has an incredible economic development director. And so there's lots of people in our area that are promoting various things. But the city of Vienna does not have a person, since Mr. Thornton is no longer here, that can attend these various things and, you know, show people what a great place the city of Vienna is, and, you know, how good it is to raise a family here, to go to school here, to have a business here. And I think that's something that in the future is going to be very important for us, because if you don't market yourself, no one else is going to do it for you. And so I'm in agreement with Mr. Leach. I think that finding this person is going to be, you know, it's going to need some thought. You're going to have a job description. You're going to have to figure out actually what's the pathway to get there. And so I don't believe it's going to be fast, but it's something that we definitely need to give some consideration to.
Well, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I certainly, I think it needs to be well defined. But my big curiosity about it was if we were going to then, continue with the process, step 2, and actually hire somebody, that we should consider that into the budget this evening. But it doesn't seem like this is very well teased out, and we need to figure it out more. And so, like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I just wanted more of an explanation. And if it was something we were going to hire in this budget year, then certainly we need to put that in the budget. But if that's not the case, then it's not a big deal for me.
Are there any further comments? All right. If there are no other comments, then I'll call for the question.
Well, I think I had some more stuff.
Oh, that's fine. I asked, you didn't answer, so.
Well, I didn't know if you were referring to if anybody had any more comments on this particular item that was discussed.
This is it.
Okay.
Any more discussion?
All right, so I'll move on to something else then. So, I expressed last time about the pool and why we are not putting the pool in the budget. And I got an answer because somehow we would signal to contractors what we're willing to pay, which that is illogical to me because all that information is already out there. I mean, we already have the proposal of the estimation of the proposed cost, etc. So we know what that is. Everything that's in the budget now hasn't gone out to bid. So it just seems to me, if we are going to tell the community that we are going to have a pool, why aren't we putting it in the budget? Because you're not showing a commitment to the pool when it's not in the budget. So I have a big problem with that because I think that we should, number one, show our commitment to trying to get this pool done by putting it in the budget, but also to have a budget that is more accurate. I'm not a big fan of budget revisions. I think they should be the exception and not the rule. So I would like to put the pool in the budget. And there's different ways of doing it, but I would, I guess, make an amendment to the budget to say, to me, I think if we put $3 million into the budget for the pool, it would, in my thought process on that, would be taking $2.5 million out of capital reserves into line 322, okay? And then having money for the debt service on the pool annually probably is going to be about $500,000, depending on how much you want to finance, or we're going to do a bond. I mean, we're not clear about any of this, and I can't believe we're going to go out to bid and we don't even know how we're going to pay for something. So I guess you want it in a more formal way.
Well, wait a minute. Maybe I missed something.
Sure.
You said $3 million, but then you said 2.5 out of capital reserve.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Debt service.
And then also you're going to have to take another $500,000 out of capital reserves for the debt service. I'm sorry. I was confusing the way I said it. But because you've got to pay the debt service on that, and there's no money in the pool budget to do that. So if you take $3 million out of capital reserves and you put it in, you transfer it in to the 322 contribution from other funds, and then in 542, I think it's line 58 capital outlay, and you put that $3 million in there. So now we have the $2.5 million for basically the down payment on the pool and the $500,000 to pay for the debt of the pool.
All right, so what is your language?
Hang on, I think I have it written down here somewhere.
Are you getting this, Mr. Skogstad?
I think so.
All right.
I'm trying to nice it up.
Here we go.
Okay, you probably do a better job than me, but
I don't know.
so I move to amend the budget to transfer $3 million from capital reserves to line 322, contributions from other funds, and to amend line 54258, capital outlay other, to $3 million. So that it's balanced, obviously.
Will you read that slower for me? Because I want to make sure I get what you're saying.
Sure.
So you're moving to move $3 million.
Amend the budget to transfer $3 million from capital reserves to line 322, which is contribution from other funds, and to amend line 54258, which is the pool capital outlay other, to $3 million, so that it's balanced.
542, what was it?
58 capital outlay other. And maybe there's a different line we should use, but my understanding is that line. Is that correct? Okay.
Are you good?
To $3 million. Okay,
Are you good?
I think so.
Okay. Is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the amendment. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I think, I agree with Kim on this, and I've talked with her a little bit about this and trying to come up with a reasonable number. I think it is important that we, show a commitment and show that we're willing to put money down for a pool this year. I mean, we really need a pool, and it sounds like we're pretty close to having a final design. And like Kim said, a lot of, the budget for next year is a guesstimate. It's an educated understanding of what we've spent before on things and what we need to spend to kind of continue to run as a city. We know that we're getting ready to renovate the pool, and we have an educated guess from the architect who's designing the pool. Their budget was somewhere around $6 million, and I think personally that is a lot of money to spend on a pool, but I also understand the amount of work and equipment and things that are going into the pool. So I think that is, to me, that's a comfortable amount that the city can kind of lay out at this point. Once we get bids back and everything, that might have to change a little bit. But at this point, it feels like it's a comfortable number for me that the city can kind of put forward. I don't know that we're like showing our hand by saying that, because that's really only maybe 50% of the overall cost. So I don't see that being kind of showing our hand for how much we're willing to pay or not pay for the pool at this time. I think it's just being sensible and planning ahead and setting money aside that we know we're going to have to spend anyway. So I think the $2.5 million down, plus assuming for a debt service for however we pay for it, obviously the goal would be to get as much grant money as possible. And then I know at the last meeting you all discussed doing a bond to kind of help save some money and stuff there as well. But I think, a good educated guess with $500,000 annually for that kind of debt service makes sense to me. So I think that, amending the budget to show this makes sense.
Any other comments?
I just want to mention, I think kind of how I'm viewing this is, in a sense, because that money is going to come out of capital reserves, I see it more as we already have that money set aside. We just haven't named it a certain amount yet. Like, we already know it's coming out of capital reserves, and we have a lot of money in capital reserves. We're not going to spend all that money. We're not going to, we may not need as much as what you're asking to come out of capital reserves. So I think, especially if this was money that we didn't know where it was going to come from, that'd be one thing. But we do know that a certain amount of it is going to come from capital reserves. And so I'm very comfortable with not needing this amendment, because it is a simple budget revision. And I'm like you, I don't want to always look at budget revisions. I want them to be, not as frequent, and everything should be well thought out ahead of time so that we have as few as possible. Totally agree with that. But I kind of do feel like it already is set aside because it's in capital reserves. And what if a tragedy or an emergency came up, and we needed a large amount from capital reserves, but we've already moved this amount, then we're talking about having to come back in and do a transfer and that kind of thing to move it back over. So I would rather leave it where it is until we are much further down the road with more details and more information, real numbers from real bids that come in. So I would prefer to just wait on it. That's where I'm at.
I am also against the amendment. I don't believe it's necessary at all. And so it's not part of this whole process. So, Mr. Leach, I'm going to give you an opportunity if you have a comment. If you don't, we'll move on, sir.
Just briefly, I think that contrary to what's been said, we've definitely made a commitment to the pool, and I agree with Reporter Elam and the mayor that when we get numbers, we know it's coming, and we'll address it then versus trying to pull some numbers out of the hat and throw them in the budget right now that really doesn't serve any purpose.
So I have a question, if I may. Recorder Elam had mentioned we already know how we're doing it. I don't know how we're doing it.
No, we have already said that it's capital reserves, a loan, and grant money, and foundations. So to
Right.
me, that's clarity enough.
Well, for me, it's not, because you're talking about $6 million, so I'd like to know how that's proportioned, number one. Number two, and the mayor, when I had an opportunity to speak to him about it last week, and he talked about a bond, which was a bond. I'm not opposed to a bond, but that was not part of the resolution that we passed. There was no language for a bond in there. So I think there's a lot of gray area, and for me, I don't feel comfortable with it at all, because nobody wants to get pinned down and say, hey, we want to take X amount of dollars from capital reserves and make that commitment and put it in there. And, we need to be thinking about the debt service and put that in there. I don't know why there's this hesitation. I just don't, because that's the point of the budget. And as I mentioned before, absolutely everything in this budget is we're going to have to wait for things to go out to bid and to bid out the financing and all that stuff. So it's all a picture that'll be put together once we have harder numbers, but we're planning ahead, and we know we're going to do the pool. We know that. I mean, everybody here is 100% for that. So, it's kind of put your money where your mouth is. You need to put the money down and have some conversation about how to do it. I mean, if, maybe people don't agree with my math as far as the $3 million and like to do it differently. I mean, I would like to hear that, but just to say, oh, it's budget and we're going to do a pool, but we're not going to budget for it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
All right.
If I can just kind of add one more comment. I think it's perfectly reasonable to have this in the budget. The $3 million, that is a comfortable number, I think, for the city to kind of set aside and still have enough in capital reserves for any kind of emergency that might come up. So I think that it makes sense to have a commitment. It's not just throwing numbers in a hat and throwing numbers on a wall that hope we stick. I think that $3 million is a comfortable, significant, calculated number based on the estimate that we have from Omni, based on where we stand kind of economically and budgetarily in the city. And so to me, it makes a lot of sense. I don't know that it's out of order or jumping the gun or stepping ahead of anything. Most clients, when they come into an office for an architect, they already have a budget in mind. And they say, hey, I have $5 million to spend. I need this designed, make it for $5 million. And that's a pretty common thing. So for the city to not have any commitment or any hard numbers that we're willing to commit, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. I know that we can easily change it with a budget revision once we get the hard numbers, but I don't see us needing more or wanting to commit more than $3 million for this year.
Okay. All right. I'll call for the question on this item. Since Mr. Leach is joining us by phone, then I will poll the council. Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
No.
Recorder Elam?
No.
Councilman Bibby?
No.
Councilman Mancuso?
Yes.
Councilman Leach?
No.
And I also vote no. So it would be 5-2, the amendment fails. It would be 2-5, the amendment fails. All right. Ms. Williams, we move on. What else?
Okay, just, I have some concerns about the increase in the money for Friends of Vienna. Gone from 25,000 up to 40,000 this budget year, and I'm concerned because the last couple budget cycles of the way, we start out and then of $25,000, and then we revise another budget and get another 25,000 or 27,000, whatever the case may be. And so when I go back and I look through the last three budgets, we've given Friends of Vienna $117,000, and then there's all the in-kind donations that we've made through the city workers that have had to go down and help with that. And I know last year I asked Mrs. Roberts, or I'm sorry, back in July when the Freedom Festival was over, and I emailed her back and forth, and she provided me the numbers, and she said there were 256 man-hours, city workers, that went and, helped with the Freedom Festival. And of course that has a cost to it. Not only just the straight payroll costs, but payroll tax and everything else that goes with it. So I think there's, anywhere from another $10,000 or $12,000 in kind just to do the Freedom Festival. And then, this year we're giving them an additional $27,000 to do the rodeo. And then we have to provide our city workers there to, to create the rodeo and to pull in the dirt and all that stuff and to work it and to restore Spencer's Landing, however that's going to look. So my concern is, it just seems like there's just a lot of money being put out to Friends of Vienna, and I think we should support Friends of Vienna. I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm saying, but I just feel like it's just something that just keeps growing and growing and growing, and I don't like to see that. So for me, I would feel more comfortable at $25,000, which is what we put in the budget last year for them. And like I said, and they still came back and we did budget revisions and they got more money. So I would like to amend that to read amend line 607-68, Friends of Vienna, all contributions from $40,000 to $25,000. And amend line 299, unencumbered balance from $450,000 to $435,000, so that it's balanced.
All right, say it one more time.
It has to go the other way.
Maybe I said it wrong.
If you're taking 15,000 away from the Freedom Festival, you have to put the 15,000. Oh, okay.
Do you want me to read it again for you, Melissa?
Yes, please.
Happy to.
Slowly.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm talking too fast.
That's okay.
It's usually not my problem, but I don't know. Maybe too much caffeine today. I move to amend line 607-68, Friends of Vienna, all contributions, from $40,000 to $25,000, and to amend line 299, unencumbered balance, from $450,000 to $435,000.
435.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we amend the budget to remove $15,000 from the funding for the Friends of Vienna from $40,000 to $25,000. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Williams.
Yes.
Councilman Azinger. Councilman Leach. Jim, have we lost you? All right, so Mr. Leach is no longer with us. Recorder Elam.
No.
Councilman Bibby.
No.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Mayor.
Jim. I got you, Jim.
no, I'm back.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
I did have a comment. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
The,
I'm sorry, Jim. We're past that, buddy.
That,
We're already
that's fine.
we're to the vote, and I'm sorry.
All right.
Councilwoman
That's
Williams
all right.
voted yes. Councilman Azinger, Recorder Elam, and Councilman Bibby have all voted no. And so your vote on this, sir?
My vote is no.
Councilman Mancuso,
Yes.
and I also vote no. So the amendment also fails 2-5. What else?
That's it on my list, Mayor.
All right. Are there any other discussion points on the budget? If not, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the resolution approving the 2023-2024 general fund and coal severance budgets and their submission to the West Virginia State Tax Commissioner, please vote accordingly. Councilwoman Williams.
Yes.
Councilman Azar.
Yes.
Councilman Leach.
Yes.
Recorder Elam.
Yes.
Councilman Bibby.
Yes.
Councilman Mancuso.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So the budget for the 2023-2024 budget and the coal severance budget passes unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Leach, go enjoy your ceremony, sir.
Thank you.
Before
Good night, all. Thank you.
We're
I'm
done.
going to catch the Uber. Bye.
Yeah, see ya. All right, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Are there any council comments? Hearing none then,